So now let's get started with this afternoon's session on innovations in technology. I'm Lori Scott, Vice President of Technology and Partnerships for NatureServe. Joining me for today's presentation are Suzanne Mason, Conservation Data Manager from the North Carolina Natural Heritage Program, and Renee Hypes, Project Review Coordinator from the Virginia Division of Natural Heritage. I'm going to start us off by introducing you to NatureServe Explorer, the online guide to the species and ecosystems of the United States and Canada. NatureServe uses the power of science, data, and technology to guide biodiversity conservation. We deploy cutting-edge technology to streamline every phase of the data to decision lifecycle, from mobile field observation tools to online collaborative science hubs. Our work is guided by three core questions. What is it? Where is it? And how is it doing? Before any conservation action can be taken, we first need to know what we are trying to protect. NatureServe tracks nearly 100,000 species and ecosystems using a standard classification system. To understand where it is, NatureServe network partners in the US and Canada document locations of species and ecosystems using field surveys by professional biologists and other sources, including citizen scientists. Together, we have documented nearly 1 million such occurrences. And to know how biodiversity is doing, we use standard peer-reviewed processes to assess the extinction risk of species and ecosystems at state, province, national, and global levels to guide conservation priorities and decisions. All of these data are at your fingertips using NatureServe Explorer. Right from the homepage, you can click on the quick search tool to enter your species or ecosystem name if you know what you're looking for. Or you can use the advanced search tool to construct your search by combining criteria for taxonomy, or what it is, location, and the status, how it's doing. Here's an example where we're searching for salamanders that are ranked by NatureServe as critically imperiled, or G1, or imperiled, G2, and we see 48 results. You can scroll through the result summary and see for each species its scientific and common names, its NatureServe conservation status, or G rank, and a summary of the states or provinces where it's found. You can export all of the results to an Excel file, or you can select a record to see more details about an individual species. This is the detail page for the frosted flatwood salamander, which is a G2 globally imperiled species that occurs in 3 states, Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. The distribution map shows at a glance that this salamander is ranked as critically imperiled, or S1, at the state level by all 3 states because the state conservation status is depicted in red on the map. We can also see that the species has been documented to occur in a fairly limited number of places in these states. These are the shown as small white hexagons overlaid on the state map. We will take a closer look by viewing this map over in Explorer Pro, which is an advanced mapping option that will be coming online soon. Here in Explorer Pro, we see the same distribution map for the frosted flatwood salamander. Explorer Pro is a map-centric interface that provides additional map layers and tools to analyze and download results. NatureServe has an expanding suite of spatial data products to support conservation decision-making. In coordination with our network partners, we have produced habitat models for thousands of imperiled, threatened, and endangered species. This map shows areas with medium probability suitable habitat in pale orange, where the salamander potentially occurs, beyond the documented occurrence locations shown in the larger hexagons. The hexagons shown in darker orange here are the areas with high probability suitable habitat for the frosted flatwood salamander. We are working collaboratively with our network partners now to review, refine, and publish these species habitat models in both NatureServe Explorer and Explorer Pro. One of the many innovative features in the Explorer mapping interface is its nested hexagon framework for aggregating species occurrence data. Using this flexible framework allows Explorer to publish data at multiple scales to accommodate differences among data provider policies. Sensitive species can be shared at a coarser hex aggregation scale, like 343 square miles, while less sensitive species may be shared at finer scales, down to 1 square mile. Certain registered users may also be authorized to access precise data through a data license agreement. This map shows an example of this flexible data sharing framework for the Ram's Head Lily Lady's Slipper. Sorry, that's a mouthful. This is an orchid that occurs throughout much of the Northeast and Great Lakes regions. Many of the Canadian conservation data centers in our network make location data available to the public at 1 square mile for non-sensitive species. In this case, we see how jurisdictions on the US side of the map are generalizing the locations for the species to 343 square miles, while on the Canada side of the map, locations are displayed at a finer hexagon scale. Here we have zoomed in closer to an area along the Ottawa River, separating Ontario to the south from Quebec to the north. Ontario has elected to share data for the species at 1 square mile, which are represented in pink, while Quebec is limiting the display scale to the 49 square mile hexagon. Funding from Environment and Climate Change Canada is supporting improvements to the NatureServe Explorer interface to make these data more widely accessible. If you're interested in learning more about Canada's Open Data Sharing Initiative, you can attend the talk by Charles Francis during the BWB session being held on May 3rd at 3:30. Now let's look more at the features available in Explorer Pro. So we'll open the welcome page here. We've just examined several examples of how Explorer Pro provides users with detailed species documented locations, as well as predicted habitat models at multiple scales. On this table, we compare features available through NatureServe Explorer and the additional capabilities provided through the Explorer Pro tool. Another important way Explorer Pro extends the capabilities of NatureServe Explorer is its multi-species search and reporting tools, which I'll show next. This heat map shows the places where we have a higher number of unique species, shown in red, orange, and yellow, compared with places that have fewer unique species, shown in blue. The legend lists the range of unique species in each color class, and it'll update as you zoom in to smaller and smaller hexagon scales. Clicking on an individual hexagon, like I've done here, will display the exact number of unique species documented to occur in that cell. In this portion of California, we see there are 154 species that have been documented. Click here and you can open to view the full list of species. This opens a preview of the Explorer Pro Biodiversity Report, which will show the first 100 records for you to scan through. The View All Species tab allows you to analyze what species occur in a place in 2 ways. You can draw on the map, or you can select a feature from a map layer. Here we are zoomed into the area around Pennsylvania. Selecting the Draw tool on the map will open the drawing tool. And using the polygon tool, we can draw the outline of our search area on the map and then double click to complete the shape. Once the shape is completed, it will select all of the intersecting hexagons. Notice that the data are not available for West Virginia, which results in the hexagons intersecting that state to be omitted from the search. Select the Run Biodiversity Report to learn which species are documented to occur in the area you drew. Once again, the preview report indicates there are over 100 species found. Click here to see the full report. Within the full report, you can sort on any of the column headings, so you can reorder by species name, taxonomy category, NatureServe status, or federal legal status. You can also export the data to an Excel file or print the report to a PDF file. Once you're done reviewing the report, you can return to the map. Using the View Layers menu, you can turn on other layers within the Explorer Pro map. You can also add your own layers to use for analyzing the NatureServe data. You can either upload your map layer using a shapefile, or you can link to an online map by entering its URL here. In this example, I'm adding a map layer that I found on ArcGIS Online for a proposed pipeline route. You can either upload your map layer using a shapefile. Oops, I'm sorry, I just said that. Let me just go through. So here is that proposed pipeline route. It traverses Virginia and North Carolina as shown here. To analyze which species occur in an area, you can draw an area on the map, or you can analyze the area from one of the layers you're viewing. So here I'm selecting part of that proposed pipeline route from the layer I just added. I can analyze the potential impact of this project on at-risk species doing this. Click the Biodiversity Report tool to analyze the selected area for all species tracked by NatureServe. Or you can refine your results by checking the box to select just at-risk species or those with federal status under the U.S. Endangered Species Act or COSEWIC. Here again is the preview window of the results, which finds 71 documented species along the pipeline route. Clicking here opens the full report in your browser. You can save the results of the report to a PDF. That's the view I'm showing here, where we see the first 2 of 6 pages of the report. The report includes the map of the area that was analyzed, along with the list of documented species found to intersect the area. Each species listed in the report includes a link that will open the full details of that species profile on Explorer. Note here that the report lists disclaimers about not replacing regulatory review requirements. And importantly, we also provide links to our local network partners. For Virginia and North Carolina, these links will connect users to those states' online environmental review tools, which can provide users with additional information and guidance for reducing conflicts and impacts. NatureServe has developed the technology powering online environmental review tools operating or in development for 12 states now. So next, I'd like to turn it over to our other speakers, Suzanne Mason from North Carolina and Renee Heitz from Virginia, who will demonstrate their state online environmental review tools. And when we come back from their presentations, I will talk a bit more about NatureServe's technology partnerships and future directions.
Thank you, Lori. Hello, everybody. My name is Suzanne Mason, and I'm a data manager for the North Carolina Natural Heritage Program. I want to begin briefly with a little information to orient you to North Carolina and its Heritage Program. North Carolina is located in the southeastern United States between Virginia to the north and South Carolina to the south. It is composed of 3 main physiographic regions, with the mountains in the west, the Piedmont in the central part of the state, and a coastal plain that ends in a tidewater area at the Atlantic Ocean to the east. As a result, we have a wide variety of habitats and a rich biodiversity. North Carolina's Heritage Program is a non-regulatory entity housed within state government and is a member of the NatureServe network. We are responsible for inventorying the most important places for biodiversity in the state and prioritizing them for conservation action. As part of this work, we have collected information on over 29,000 rare species populations in ecological community locations. The primary way we share our accumulated biodiversity data with those outside the program is through our Data Explorer, which is a state-specific data exploration tool that is complementary to Explorer and Explorer Pro. It is a customized version of NatureServe's Environmental Review Tool web mapping application framework, and it was developed in collaboration with NatureServe in 2014 and first deployed in North Carolina in 2015. The Data Explorer provides interactive access to the finest scale data available from the North Carolina Natural Heritage Program, with a level of detail that can exceed Explorer or Explorer Pro in certain geographic areas. Our Data Explorer was developed to serve a spectrum of end users whose varied interests in natural heritage data range from conservation planning to regulatory compliance. Though there are many, one use case that I would like to highlight today is the forest products industry. This industry is very active in the eastern part of the state, and some companies and stand owners follow the Forest Stewardship Council or the Sustainable Forestry Initiative forest management standards as part of their commitment to environmental stewardship. Both forest management standards reference rare or protected species, species and ecological communities with specific global and state rarity ranks, as well as the use of natural heritage data in their action items that help safeguard biodiversity. The North Carolina Natural Heritage Program Data Explorer allows forestry professionals to use a variety of tools to easily navigate to an area of interest, including a Google-based address and place search, seen here in the toolbar at the upper right above the arrow. Once at an area of interest, a place-based exploration of the nearness of known locations of species and ecological communities outlined in the Forest Management Plan standards can be performed on the map with querying tools. Here, the element occurrences were turned on by checking the box next to the data layer name in the table of contents on the left. The element occurrences are the data layer that show documented locations of rare species and ecological communities. Next, the Identify tool, located at the right of the toolbar and circled in red, was used to select and view the attributes of a documented occurrence present near the area of interest. As you can see in the attributes of the details window that popped up, this feature represents a population of a federally endangered plant with a rarity status of G3 or vulnerable, as indicated by the arrows. So it would be of relevance under both the SFI and FSC standards. Using the Identify tool to explore the data is most effective in areas where there are few data records. For areas where that is not the case, or to ensure no features are missed, we recommend using our self-service automated proximity analysis. This functionality is available from the Create Project button, located near the upper left of the map next to the arrow. Creating a project allows the user to define an area of interest directly on the map using one or more digitizing tools available on the Draw Edit toolbar. In addition to freehand digitizing, you can also copy features from other map layers or use features from a geospatial file created with GIS software to define an area of interest. In this case, a property was copied from North Carolina's statewide seamless parcel layer. You can see the property of interest in blue and the boundaries of adjacent parcels indicated in pink. Once an area of interest has been defined and submitted, a spatial analysis is performed by the system, and a report that represents an official data inquiry response from the program is produced. The report is typically generated in 5 minutes or less and is provided directly to the end user. This report is familiar to permitting and regulatory agency staff within the state, and it can be used to demonstrate that the best available data from North Carolina's Natural Heritage Program has been obtained. In addition to a cover letter, the report contains 2 sets of element occurrence tables. These tables show what species or ecological communities have been documented from within the area of interest or are within a mile of its boundary. The records in this latter table are helpful when planning on-site surveys of properties that have not been visited by the Heritage Program, or for those where no data exists in the program's database. Knowing what has been documented from nearby provides an idea of what might be in the area, simply because there is a greater likelihood of finding a species if it has been documented in the vicinity, and if similar suitable habitat is also present at the site. The timing of surveys or other on-site activities can then be planned around the optimal time to identify these resources or to minimize potential impacts to them. Not all species and ecological communities listed in the table will be relevant to the application of the SFI and FSC forest management standards. To that end, both federal and state legal protection statuses, as well as the rarity indicators in the form of NatureServe's G ranks and North Carolina's S ranks, are provided. These attributes allow a forestry professional to determine which of the species and ecological communities listed are those that meet the criteria defined in the forest management standards and thus warrant further consideration. In addition to rare species and ecological communities, 2 additional types of tables are provided as part of the report. There are tables indicating what natural areas and managed areas are present in the area of interest or within a mile of it. Natural areas are terrestrial or aquatic sites that are important for supporting North Carolina's rare species and more common elements of the state's natural heritage. Each includes at least 1 rare species or ecological community, and they are the state's desired targets for conservation action. Each one has a unique name, has had an on-the-ground survey by the Natural Heritage Program, and has had conservation ratings assigned to it. The presence of a natural area on a property doesn't preclude forestry activities, but can indicate a potential conservation opportunity. Managed areas are properties and easements where natural resource conservation is one of the primary management goals, or they are properties of conservation interest. A managed area can be a property that has an easement or other type of conservation protection associated with it, which might limit the type of activities that can occur on the parcel. More commonly, however, they indicate the location of properties owned by federal, state, and local governments. Managed areas can partially or completely contain a natural area or may not overlap at all, indicating that the entire natural area is in need of conservation protection. Now, with the report in hand, a forester can then return to the map to view the specific locations of these resources, learn details about them, and perform additional exploration of North Carolina's natural heritage data records. The North Carolina Natural Heritage Program Data Explorer can be accessed from the program's homepage at ncnhp.org or directly at ncnhde.natureserve.org. Anyone can view the map and view or query the natural areas, managed areas, or other reference data layers by going to the Map tab. However, an account is required to view and query the element occurrences layer, which again is the data set with the rare species and ecological communities, and to create a project and receive a report. An account can be set up through the Create New Account link below the user login area. And I do want to note that fees may apply for the element occurrences data layer and the report. Information on our fees is provided on the Data Explorer homepage. Though it is not required, we do offer a training that covers fundamentals of North Carolina's natural heritage data and its interpretation, and a deep dive into how to use the Data Explorer. And upcoming sessions are listed on the events page of our main website at ncnhp.org/events. And with that, I will pass it over to Renee to talk about Virginia's Data Explorer.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Renee Hypes, and I'm the Project Review Coordinator for the Virginia Natural Heritage Program. Thank you, Suzanne, for that overview of the North Carolina Data Explorer. It is very similar to our Explorer that's been available since 2013. I'm here today to kind of jump in and talk about examples of how the Virginia Environmental Review Tool, or the ERT, is utilized in regulatory species consultation in Virginia. There are various mandates in Virginia that require consultation for threatened and endangered species. The Endangered Species Act directs all federal agencies to conserve endangered threatened species and to use their authorities to further the purposes of the Act. Section 7 of the Act, called Interagency Cooperation, is the mechanism by which federal agencies ensure the actions that they take, including those that they fund or actually authorize, do not jeopardize the existence of any listed species. Other federal legislation, such as the Clean Water Act, the National Environmental Policy Act, the Coastal Zone Management Act, include requirements for T&E consultation. So various federal agencies coordinate with the Virginia Natural Heritage Program, which is non-regulatory, for data to inform their assessments in determining impacts to threatened and endangered species. Also in Virginia, 2 state agencies have regulatory authority for state-listed species. The Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources oversees wildlife species, including state-listed animals. There are specific statutory and regulatory requirements relative to the consultation or solicitation of comments from the Department of Wildlife Resources, incumbent on permitting and reviewing agencies regarding potential impacts on fish and wildlife resources generally, and T&E species in particular, from the activities they're implementing, funding, or permitting. There's also the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, which has regulatory authority over state-listed plants and insects. The Natural Heritage Program conducts the actual initial consultation on behalf of the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services under a memorandum of agreement, whereas we evaluate if the proposed activity will impact those resources. Our database is key for this coordination, which, as one of Virginia's natural heritage responsibilities under the Natural Areas Preservation Act, we maintain a statewide database for conservation planning, project review for the habitats of rare, threatened, and endangered species, significant natural communities, geological sites, and other natural features. In addition, other regulations, code requirements, and national certification, as Suzanne pointed out, are required to coordination with the natural heritage programs. As you can see from the graph, the number of projects reviewed in 2020 by the Virginia Natural Heritage Program was over 3,000 projects, where we provided data to different agencies, organizations, and companies. 2/3 of the projects were submitted through our Virginia Environmental Review tool by subscribers. The data and recommendations provided through this coordination were utilized to meet the many regulatory mandates as previously mentioned. The Virginia Department of Transportation is one of our biggest clients. So for VDOT and other agencies, the information gathered from other agencies as well as the Natural Heritage Program helps inform the Section 7 ESA determination table as shown on the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Virginia Field Office webpage. Many clients utilize the Virginia Environmental Review tool and associated data to determine if suitable habitat is present for federal species and if the project will adversely affect the resource. As a subscriber to the website, which Suzanne mentioned, they also require a subscription to see sensitive data. VDOT submits a project through the ERT tool to gather information to inform the ESA Section 7 and state ESA coordination requirements to determine impacts on federally listed and state listed species. In addition, the Virginia State Environmental Review process, known as SERP, requires VDOT to consider impacts to all natural heritage resources, whether they're threatened or endangered, and whether they're actually listed. This that you're seeing on the screen is an example of a ditching project that was submitted through the Virginia ERT by VDOT. So when a project is submitted through our website, the environmental screening layers in the Virginia ERT that are included in that screening are the documented screening layer, the database and CARS layers, and predicted suitable habitat summary. All 3 layer groups make up the core screening set for project review. The documented natural heritage screening layer is made up of conservation sites. These sites are polygons built around one or more rare plant, animal, or natural communities designed to include the element and, where possible, associated habitat or a buffer or adjacent land through that would be necessary for the element's conservation. Conservation sites are given a biodiversity significant ranking based on the rarity, quality, and number of element occurrences they contain on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being most significant. Also included in this layer are stream conservation units that identify stream reaches that contain aquatic natural heritage resources. including 2 miles upstream and 1 mile downstream of documented occurrences and all tributaries within the reach. Stream conservation units are also given a biodiversity significant ranking based on the rarity, the quality, and the number of element occurrences they contain. Another layer is our diabase layer, and the diabase layer indicates where diabase glades are characterized by historically fire-dominated grassland vegetation on relatively nutrient-rich soils underlain by Triassic bedrock. Diabase flat rock, a hard, dark-colored volcanic rock, is found primarily in northern Virginia counties and is located within the geologic formation known as the Triassic Basin. A suite of rare plant species can be associated with this geology. We also include in our screening protocol karst layers. The karst bedrock layer is a layer that was derived from the Virginia Department of Mines, Minerals, and Energy, and basically includes bedrock units containing karstic strata where selected converted to a statewide layer consisting of these units only. We also have the spatial karst screen layer, which was produced by buffering cave entrances in the Virginia Speleological Survey database for caves not covered under biotics. And then our final layer is the predicted suitable habitat summary layer, which identifies areas of predicted suitable habitat for multiple species in Virginia. This layer is created by combining multiple individual species predicted suitable habitat layers into one layer. Individual predicted suitable habitat layers identify areas most likely to have suitable habitat for that species, and Lori mentioned that in her presentation, and these were developed using known occurrences, a species distribution model, and expert opinion. We currently have 179 predicted suitable habitat models available on the Virginia ERT tool, including 138 federal and state T&E species models, as well as 41 non-listed G1 and G2 species. We're continuing to model G1 and G2 plants and vertebrate animals with big groups of uninvestigated G1 and G2 invertebrates and communities still remaining to be modeled. So for the stitching project that I showed as an example earlier, submitted by the VDOT through the ERT, looking at the data that was provided through the report, as well as what's shown on the map viewer, you can see that the project area intersects a conservation site, which is in blue, as well as numerous predicted models in pink, as identified through the ERT report. And those resources include karst resources, and predicted models show up also for federally listed rusty patch bumblebee and the Virginia big-eared bat, as well as other rare bats. So based on this information provided by the ERT and other sources, the ESA Section 7 determination table can now be completed to determine if the proposed project will adversely affect federally listed species. As you can see in this example, suitable habitat for the Virginia big-eared bat was identified, and a may affect, but not likely to adversely affect, was determined due to a habitat assessment. In addition to the predicted suitable habitat models being included on the Virginia Environmental Review Tool, they're also included in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife IPAC system. And that stands for Information Planning and Conservation System, to help inform the official IPAC resource list for Section 7. Through funding, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and other partners, DCR developed models for 19 different federal and T&E species that they're currently included on the U.S. Fish and Wildlife IPAC system. In an effort to improve project review, DCR has developed species distribution models based on GIS and statistical analysis of the unique relationships between species locations and various habitat characteristics, which refine these suitable habitat areas. For example, Previously, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife used county-level species presence and absence data to determine a need for T&E species consultation. So previously, a project anywhere in the 4 counties would trigger U.S. Fish and Wildlife consultation. The species distribution model and predicted suitable habitat model developed for this resource now provides a more informed area where the resource is likely to occur based on statistical analysis. As you can see in the Michaud-Sumac predicted suitable habitat model as displayed on the Virginia ERT, it is a much smaller, more targeted area of the state providing predicted suitable habitat. These objective methods and clear model outputs enable better informed survey results and expedited consultation for government and for clients. Another example is the yellow lance predicted suitable habitat model that was developed by DCR, currently available on the Virginia ERT and on the IPAC system with a 500-foot buffer on each side of the water body. The PSH provides a more informed Section 7 review because it focuses on streams with potential suitable habitat. The previous screening protocol was HUC 10 watersheds, so it included areas not close to the streams or in intermittent streams which did not provide suitable habitat. Finally, another predicted suitable habitat on the Virginia ERT tool and included in the IPAC system is for the Roanoke log perch, which is both federally and state listed in Virginia. This is a composite model of DCR's suitable habitat model and Virginia Tech's model. This model was vetted by different regulatory agencies before it was placed on either tool. As you can see, looking at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Environmental Conservation online system, ECOS webpage for the Roanoke log perch, there's a variety of information about the resource, including biological opinions. As the next step in Section 7 analysis, when a federal agency determines through a biological assessment or other review that its action is likely to adversely affect a listed species, the federal agency is required to submit to the service a request for formal consultation. That consultation request results in a biological opinion. As you look at that information, you will notice that there is information that's provided for those biological opinions. I think in between the years 2018 to 2021, the Virginia Field Office of Fish and Wildlife had conducted some 16 biological opinions determinations. And in that process, it had utilized both documented occurrences as well as those predicted suitable habitat models. I also wanted to make a note that as part of the data included on the U.S. Fish and Wildlife ECOS webpage, a link to the NatureServe Explorer Species Report is identified as another resource to provide additional information about the species. So as you can see, the Virginia ERT tool and its data is utilized by various clients to inform their regulatory and permitting obligations. I'd like to thank everyone for the opportunity to provide information about Virginia's environmental review tool. I would also like to thank the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Virginia Field Office for providing information provided in today's presentation. Now I will turn it back over to Lori Scott to talk more about environmental review tools across the Heritage Network and the technology behind them. Lori?
Thanks a lot, Renee and Suzanne, for those great presentations on the state environmental review tools. And there we go. I really appreciate seeing in action how those tools are really streamlining conservation planning and environmental review processes in your states. I just wanted to inform everyone that, like those two states, there are others. This map shows all of the states where these tools are currently in use. The darker blue states have systems that are in production, and the states shown in light blue are where new tools are currently in development and will be coming online soon. There are major upgrades underway for the environmental review tool system, and those include modernizing the tool's mapping components. It also includes ensuring the map is more accessible to all, including those with disabilities. The system's underlying content management system component will be upgraded as well. Also on the horizon is developing APIs or programmatic interfaces to facilitate sharing data sets between the state tools and Explorer Pro. So this national state system coordination will provide more consistent information to users of both the national and state tools. We want to complement Explorer Pro content and functionality with the great local content you just saw by connecting Explorer Pro users to state tools for the deeper project planning and review. So I want to close by sharing more information about how some of the world's largest tech companies are supporting NatureServe's technology innovations. The first example I want to share is the Cal Poly Digital Transformation Hub, which is powered by Amazon Web Services. The Cal Poly Digital Transformation Hub, or DX Hub for short, supports technology innovations in the public sector using Amazon design thinking methods. NatureServe is one of several nonprofit sector organizations that is being supported by the Cal Poly DX Hub this year. We partnered with them to inform the design of Explorer Pro. The challenge we presented to the team was the need to design a national solution that would complement the existing NatureServe Explorer and state environmental review tools. We wanted the national solution to make it easier for users to access NatureServe network data from more than one state. And we wanted to make sure that the national solution was complementary to the state environmental review tools. The Amazon design approach used by Cal Poly works backwards by focusing on understanding the customer's problems in order to design the ideal experience to address their needs. These are shown on these bullets are the kind of questions that we ask in order to answer that challenge during the design process. So for Explorer Pro, NatureServe and the DX Hub team interviewed federal government and private industry data users. We also interviewed data provider partners from the NatureServe network. And for each user, we mapped out their goals, their tasks, and their pain points. Using these customer empathy maps, we gained a better understanding about how they currently interact with NatureServe data. And for each user type, we mapped out their interactions to identify which parts of the current process were easy and which were time-consuming and frustrating. A storyboard like the example shown here provides a customer-centric design mock-up for how a typical user might interact with the application to solve their need. These mock-ups are informing visual interactive prototypes that are providing a blueprint for the NatureServe development team that is building Explorer Pro. The next example I will share is how the Microsoft AI for Earth grant program is supporting NatureServe's technology innovation. We worked with Microsoft to develop an Azure cloud computing hub to collaboratively develop predictive habitat models for thousands of species. Using Azure virtual machines and artificial intelligence, we were able to integrate the species occurrence data from across the network and do modeling at scale. The modeling hub allows collaboration among hundreds of NatureServe network scientists using a shared computing environment where everyone can access a library of high precision environmental predictor layers. The modeling hub also provides an expert review tool allowing scientists to quality control the draft model outputs and recommend revisions. Models are assigned a confidence rating that is shared with users when published on NatureServe Explorer. Each model also has detailed metadata to help interpret the results, including validation statistics, which predictor variables are most important for that species model, threshold values that were used, and references. In addition to the individual species habitat models, this initiative also produced the Map of Biodiversity Importance, or MOBI for short. MOBI combines over 2,200 species models with existing predicted areas to highlight the places that have the highest number of at-risk species that are not currently protected. This can provide a blueprint for nationwide conservation planning and efforts like the 30 by 30 initiative you might have heard about under the new administration. This initiative would not have been possible without the collaboration of NatureServe network partners, the Nature Conservancy, Microsoft, and Esri. Esri's ArcGIS Living Atlas of the World is sharing the MOBI results online where anyone can view and analyze them. Users can access species richness and protected weighted range size rarity maps for all species or for groups of species like imperiled pollinators, vertebrates, plants, or freshwater invertebrates. NatureServe data will also be integrated into a new planetary computer that is being hosted by Microsoft. This planetary computer will provide an open library of data, APIs, and applications to empower communities to design a more sustainable future. There's one more technology partnership that has us very excited about the future. In order to meet the growing threats that face biodiversity, we need to constantly reimagine and redesign our technology. So in 2021, we are investing in rebuilding the foundation of the data enterprise that feeds all of the information we serve through NatureServe Explorer. That foundation is known as Biotics, the biodiversity information database software that's used by NatureServe and by each of our network partners. With support from an AWS Imagine grant, we are designing a new biodiversity data and spatial analysis infrastructure designed to operate in the cloud. Our goal is to develop and deliver the most accurate and up-to-date information on species and ecosystems and make it accessible for everyone who needs it. With a little help from our technology partners, we are transforming every aspect of the data decision lifecycle. So you can start exploring your favorite species, ecosystems, and places by visiting explorer.natureserve.org. I want to thank everyone for joining today's session on technology innovations. And now I think we have a few minutes, so Suzanne, Renee, and I will answer questions that were voted or submitted to the Q&A panel and those that have been upvoted to the top.
So I just want to remind everyone, you can put your questions, if you haven't already, in the questions tab at any point. If there's a question in there that you would like to hear answered, go ahead and upvote it. And we'll start with the first question. This one's for you, Lori. Can you show hexagons where the species might occur, but not the places where it actually occurs, so the public, like iNaturalist observers, can search in those possible areas?
Wow, that was a complicated question. So where can we show hexagons where species are predicted to occur but not yet documented?
Where the species might occur, yes. I think they're saying predicted, but not, not the actual location. So that basically supporting a survey, basically.
Yeah. That will be the plan, yes. So the incorporation of predicted habitat models for species as well as range maps for species is on our roadmap. So what we'd like to be able to share for all species is the larger outer range where it might occur, the highest probability habitat predicted areas, and then the documented locations. So the sort of intersection of those can provide, guidance to where you might survey and find the species in addition to those places it's already been documented. And so that's the direction that we are going. Correct.
And then another question about Explorer. Is it possible for Explorer to show just historical occurrences for a species?
That's a great question. We had talked about adding historical data as its own category, and that you could turn, maybe filter the hexagons that show historic locations versus present day. So that is something that would be possible with the data that we do have in NatureServe Explorer, and behind that in biotics. Part of that decision will be just coordinating with our network partners in terms of all the data that we are sort of aggregating and the way, agreeing on how we want to share that historical information. For example, not all state programs or provincial programs may use the same cutoff for what they consider historical. So we just need to make some decisions. Is that 20 years, 30 years, 40 years? Like when does something turn historic?
Another question could be when you showed the area of interest on the map and West Virginia was hatched out, what are some reasons why data may not be available for a certain subnation?
Great question. Yeah, so currently in Explorer, we have those areas hatched out if the state has not yet authorized us to share their information at that hexagon scale. We have state level distribution information, but not the documented occurrence information. We'd like to be able to share as much of that data for as many jurisdictions as we can, but we don't have approval for every single jurisdiction just yet. Another reason that we want to be able to share in the map for data gaps might not be the whole jurisdiction is missing, but there may be on a per species basis, there may be known gaps in the data. For example, maybe this species is known to occur in a state, but they're just not tracking it. Heritage programs sort of have a triage approach where they decide which species they track, and that's, there's usually a threshold in terms of how imperiled it is. And so that can have the effect of making it look like more common species aren't showing up on the map in Explorer, when in fact they're just so common that maybe the heritage programs are not able to take the time to survey for them in the field. That's another example where having more range maps and models will help fill in those areas that could look blank on the map today.
For Renee and or Suzanne, could you describe or repeat, if we missed it, the differing protections your states have, if any, for locations with observations versus locations modeled as potentially being occupied, but with no observations?
I'll let Renee take that one because we don't really, the North Carolina Natural Heritage Program, we have not done species modeling. So everything you see on our website are documented locations.
So for our modeled species that we're continuing to work on, it is a collaborative effort with our regulatory partners in terms of review of those models and acceptance of those models. They currently don't have any kind of regulatory authority at this point, other than they're being utilized, as I mentioned, in biological opinions. It's being something that's an additive to documented occurrences of resources. So we're working with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. We're working with the Department of Wildlife Resources, and we're working with our regulatory partners to identify how those models will be used. As you saw today on the Virginia ERT, we are using them as another data set to inform project review. What normally happens once we get an intersect with one of those predicted suitable habitat models is that we then do further coordination internally with our inventory staff and make a determination whether there's a need for a survey or that we have additional recommendations for minimizing and avoiding impacts to resources. So it is a wide range of how those models are currently being used, but it is an additional data set that we're looking at in terms of where is potential habitat and is there a survey needed.
Lori, do you have an estimate for when Explorer Pro will be available?
We get that question. So it's in a quiet, available phase right now where we've had it open for our network partners to use and to help them determine the scales of data that they're comfortable sharing. It is a new thing for us to have an online tool like this, share generalized element occurrence data. And so we're getting everyone comfortable with that. So my best estimate would be by late summer, possibly the fall, but there's really just a few more minor sort of adjustments I think we need to make between now and flipping the switch to go publicly live.
And also for you, Lori, you mentioned producing APIs for developers. What will be offered via API and what use cases do you imagine them for?
Sure. So there are a whole library of APIs available already. If you go to NatureServe Explorer, I think it's under the help menu, you'll see a link to the API docs. So there's the extensive documentation for developers. So all of the data you see on NatureServe Explorer on a species profile page, you can access very granularly. There's instructions for how to search through the API, to search the data and pull back responses. Spatial APIs are the ones that are in development now. Like we have also some REST endpoints for API speakers for the maps layers, and those we will be adding more documentation soon in terms of how to access those. Other use cases we envision, so use cases would involve, I think Renee was showing on IPAC, like the ability to link to NatureServe Explorer. Well, partners can bring in the Explorer profile page to their site instead of sending someone to our site. So there could be that bi-directional use case. Like I've seen examples of a state agency embedding the Explorer profile page within their field guide. So that you could have a state perspective for your field guide users within your state, but also show the global perspective data that NatureServe hosts. Another use case we're thinking about the APIs for the spatial data is allowing a framework where we could, I mentioned range maps or having other data for more common species. We'd love to be able to bring in maps of information, maybe with a partnership with iNaturalist or other data providers to sort of complement the data that the Natural Heritage Network and NatureServe is publishing with information that other partners might have available. So we can provide a more complete picture for users on what species occur, where they live, and where you might find them.
And Lori, I think this one is also for you. Is there a predicted rollout for Biotics cloud version, and should we use it as a replacement for the current Biotics version?
Yes, the idea is that the new cloud version of Biotics would which we'll call Biotics 6. For those who are familiar with Biotics, the current version is Biotics 5. It has not been built yet. It is in the visioning stage. So I wouldn't even hazard a guess. I think it's too premature to pick an exact timeline. It's our top priority sort of now to sort of get that design sketched out and start acting on that design. We're starting with setting the sort of foundation in place in the cloud, such that we've experimented with moving our central biotics database into the cloud and moving all of our geospatial infrastructure there, from which we could then start to build the sort of version of biotics that states use.
I think there's one more. How do you prevent hacking of rare species data in Explorer or Biotics?
How do we prevent what was the word?
Hacking of rare species data. So the locations of species data, how would you prevent them from becoming public?
Oh, okay. So I guess I'm not sure if I totally understand what the use of the term hacking there. So we are sharing generalized information. So it's generalized to say 343 square miles. And then through the Explorer Pro interface, we would allow users to register. And if they're authorized, go down to those finer scales. So there is the precise data on which those generalizations are based are protected. They're sort of behind the scenes. So we're sort of avoiding that risk by having generalized data that's available based on the permissions we've received from the data providers, so the heritage programs and conservation data centers. I hope that answered the question. I'm not sure I'm entirely understanding. I mean, and then I guess Frank and our IT team would probably have a maybe more official answer about all the ways we secure all of our data and all those best practices of IT security and those management practices. We have lots of experience of being good stewards of protecting sensitive data as the providers of the systems that store biotics information, as well as environmental review tools, as well as Explorer.
Just looking through the list here. There's a question for how can programs access data from the stakeholder engagement you mentioned. If there are other programs on here who had not heard about that engagement process, just email us and we can get you access to those sites. So I think that's it. Lots of great questions. Thank you guys. Thank you all so much for engaging with us. I guess we do have a few minutes, so I'll give each of the speakers any chance for any final words if they have any, and then we'll close the session. Lori, Suzanne, or Renee, anything that you want to leave the attendants with?
Well, I want to thank Renee and Suzanne again for joining me in this technology innovation session, and thank you, Allison, for helping moderate the Q&A. It was daunting to figure out how to moderate that as well as present at the same time, so I appreciate that. And thanks everyone for the great questions. I guess I'll just, I'll echo Allison's words. You know, contact us if you have follow-up questions about Explorer Pro, Explorer, the state environmental review tools. We are really excited about the capabilities of all these tools. They are making a huge difference, I think, in getting our information into the hands of those who need it. So